No pressure there. I don't know if any of you guys have ever experienced this before. Something happens, there's this weird bodily fluid phenomenon that goes on when you get up behind the podium to speak, right? Where, for some reason, all your bodily fluids go in the opposite places of where they're supposed to go, and all the water that's supposed to be in my mouth goes to my armpits, and my mouth gets really dry, and so I always bring my trusted chapstick and my bottle of water up to the podium with me, because I get really wet where I'm not supposed to be and really dry where I should be. So it's kind of gets a little uncomfortable up here, until God kicks in. So anyway, so thank you for that introduction. I hope I live up to that, God willing. My name is Maya Owen. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is July 29th, 2015. I do have a sponsor. I sponsor other women. I have always sponsored other women. That has been hammered into me very strongly from the beginning. I remember when I first started meeting with my sponsor and we first started going through the steps. And she said, when I'm done taking you through these steps, are you willing to carry this message to another woman? Because if you're not, I ain't got time for you. And I was like, yes ma'am, and I meant that, but I kind of said it like, I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what all of that entailed. I didn't know what carrying the message looked like. I kind of gathered from us meeting that it meant like me reading a book to another woman. I didn't know that it meant doing this and like standing behind a podium and talking to people that I didn't know. I might have said no if I knew that it meant that right there, but I said yeah because I was desperate, because I didn't know how to stay sober. And I probably would have said yes to anything that she would have asked me to do, because I was miserable and I was hopeless and I was defeated and I didn't know what else to do. I had tried a lot of other things, to try to get sober, and I just couldn't do it on my own. So as soon as I was done with my step work, I started sponsoring other women immediately. I have a home group. It is the principals group of Raleigh, and we meet on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 8 o'clock. And I've always had a home group. I've always had a service position in a home group. My very first service position was a greeter, and I graduated to child care coordinator, which is a new position in that home group that I helped create. And trust me, it's not because I like children. I barely even like my own children some days, but I felt that it was a need. There's a lot of single parents out there that really struggle to get to meetings and to be able to relax when they get to that meeting and be able to hear the message and have somebody take care of their child so that they can recover. And I saw that need, and I feel like God put that in my path and put that on my heart. Anyway, so I was born in Siler City here in North Carolina. I have an older sister who is here with me. She's she's in recovery with me. I have a younger brother. He's about 18 months younger than I am. We grew up in a household with a single mom, and we went and saw our dad on the weekend. And I think that, in my opinion, and she may tell you something different, but I think we had a pretty good childhood, right? Our mom was at our mom's house. It was very structured. It was strict, but not too strict. Just enough, It was very organized. We went to school. We came home. We did our homework. We had chores to do. We helped to chop firewood and load it in. We weren't allowed to watch The Simpsons because it was vulgar, and we played outside, man. Actually, we lived right here in Southern Pines off this little road called Piney Lane. I don't know if y'all know where that's at, but we lived in that little house. And my backyard was Weymouth Woods, and it was amazing, and we loved it. And we went exploring in Weymouth Woods and rode bikes all day, and I had a great childhood. I was happy. I did pretty good in school. I mean, I was a little bit lazy, I didn't put forth the most effort. I did pretty decent, though. I've heard a lot of people speak. I've heard a lot of people say that they felt a lot different. And that's not my story. I didn't really feel much different than the other kids. Sure, there were some periods of insecurity or some mild fear, but I didn't really feel that much different than everybody else. That middle school right across the street, I went to that middle school. Me and her were driving up here, and I was like, aren't we near the middle school? Shouldn't we be coming up on it? And lo and behold, there it was right there. And I said, look at the Lord. Look where the Lord brought us, And it was just I had no idea. I mean, we hadn't been back here in a long time, and I've never been to this meeting before, and it's just kind of crazy how God loops you back around to places. But I was a solid and upstanding member of the DARE program in school, and I firmly believed in what they told me, that drugs and alcohol were bad, and I was not raised in an alcoholic home. There was no drug abuse in my home. That was not an example that was set for me, and so those trusted policemen that came in there to that DARE program, to my school, I believed everything that they said. And when they hung those posters up, and there was those pictures of a marijuana leaf and a needle and a liquor bottle, and then if you do these things, you're gonna die, or you're gonna become homeless and you're gonna be like the homeless man around a burn barrel. I fully believe those things. I was a very gullible and naive child. I believed pretty much whatever you told me. My sister played a lot of tricks on me. And so we lived here in Southern Pines until I was 12. My mom came on some financially hard times, and we lost our home. And so we moved in with my dad, who lived in Lillington, North Carolina, and everything changed. Right? My dad is completely opposite of my mom, and it's no wonder they got a divorce, right? They're like oil and water. And so with my mom, there was a lot of structure, right? And there was discipline, and she taught me a lot of spiritual principles. I didn't know that's what they were then, but it was, she taught us things like you don't lie, you don't steal, you don't cheat, you look after your brother and his sister, you treat others how you want to be treated, you do your best in school, and, things like that. And when I moved in with my dad, it was like a free-for-all. He didn't really care. He was more of a friend than he was a parent. And his motto pretty much was, I don't care what you do as long as you get good grades in school. Other than that, you're on your own, kind of type thing. And that was, for me, I'm the type of person that I thrive in a lot of structure and a lot of discipline, a lot of scheduling, and a lot of, you tell me what to do and I'll do very good in that environment. Left to my own devices and to make my own decisions, I'm going to just burn it to the ground. I'm not going to do well. Like, I'm going to destroy some stuff, right? And so I did okay for a little while, right? A couple years or so. And it just gets to a point, my sister by this time, she was in high school, and and this is my older sister, right? Like, I look up to her, and she's like the cool older sister, and she's in high school, and she's got these cool friends, and she's got a license now, and she's riding around in her car, and it's like, I want to be like my older sister, but by this time, she's trying new things, and, she's smoking them left-handed cigarettes, and I was like, you're not supposed to be doing that stuff, but in my heart, man, like, I just want to be accepted, and like, I just want to be a part of, and I just want to fit in with the crowd, and I just want my sister to think I'm cool too. And so, like, I get taught all these things in the DARE program. They're like, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, and I believe it, and I draw this line in the sand for myself, right? And I'm like, I'm not going to do these things. This is my boundary, right? And then I get to this point where I'm like, but I want what's on the other side. Like, I want to be accepted, and I want to be cool, and I want to have the fun that I see these other people having. And so I step over that line, right? And so that's my first interaction with any kind of mood or mind-altering substance, and my experience with that is like, oh, well, I'm not dead like the DARE program said I would be, and I'm not homeless. I'm not standing around a burn barrel with any old homeless men. I haven't experienced any consequences, so this isn't as bad as they said it was going to be. So then it's easier to step over the next line, and the next line, and the next line, right? And so, I do fine in high school. I graduate high school, and my life is fine up until about probably like 19 years old, right? And around 19 is when I had my first drink. Is that a little bit late for an alcoholic? Yeah, I didn't like the taste of alcohol. It was disgusting. I didn't know how to drink it properly. I would try and like hold my nose closed while I took shots over the toilet in case I puked, and somebody had to show me how to drink. But when they finally did, like, it was on, like, I experienced the effect produced from alcohol, and it gave me that sense of ease, that sense of comfort, that warm feeling inside, or like any fears that I may have, any uncomfortability, any insecurity, is gone now, and like, I am one of many, right? I'm just as good and as pretty and as skinny and as funny and as good as anybody else at this party or at this club or wherever I'm at, I'm like, this feels great, we should probably do this really often. And so I started to drink more, and I dabble in more things, and I do it more often. And so when I'm 21, I get involved with my assistant manager at work, and we skip work one day to go off drinking and doing our thing, right? And he borrows his mom's car, which was a Firebird, and we're both, heavily under the influence of some kind of substance, and he's going about 110 miles an hour, and he loses control, and he wrecks the car, and I get life flighted to UNC Chapel Hill, and I broke my neck in 5 places, and broke my right arm, and I had a traumatic brain injury, and my brain would not stopped bleeding and swelling, and the doctors informed my parents that I had about 72 hours to live, and that they needed to get their affairs in order and say their goodbyes, because I wasn't going to make it. And right around that 3-day, like that 72-hour mark, God obviously had different plans, right? And so I threw a blood clot in my brain, and it caused me to have a stroke, which paralyzed my right side. But my brain stopped bleeding and swelling, and so I lived. And they kept me in a drug-induced coma for, I really don't remember, a week, 2 weeks, something like that. And I don't remember a whole lot about that hospital stay. But what I do remember, like pretty vividly, is like being woken up, and I'm confused and I don't know what's going on, and they're asking me these questions like, can you stand up? Can you move? I'm like, what happened? They're like, you've been in a wreck, right? And like, I'm trying to process all this information, and just this massive wave of like self-centered fear comes over me, and I'm like, who am I going to be? Like, am I ever going to be the same again? What are people going to think about me? Like, my right side is paralyzed. Am I ever going to walk again? What are people going to say about me? What are my friends going to think? Like, am I ever going to date again? Like, am I ever going back to school? You know, it's just like all these fears just like bum rush me, you know, and I'm like internally like freaking out. Like, what is my life going to be like? And this nurse comes in. She's like, Miss Owen, it's time for your medicine, you know, and I really don't pay her any attention. And then she puts the medicine into my IV, and then all those fears are gone, right? Every bit of worry is just wiped away, and everything is good again. And I was like, oh, it's fine. Like, we'll deal with it tomorrow. It's perfectly fine, you know? And it's just like, what I learned from that experience is that the effect produced from whatever substance it is that I could find and get my hands on after that point, you know, whether it was in a liquor bottle or, you know, a pill or whatever that looked like, that became my solution to life, to problems, to my fears, to my anxieties, to my insecurities, to my worries, to good times, to bad times, because I didn't know how to cope. I didn't know how to deal with my feelings and my thoughts. And so the doctors, you know, it's time to go home from the hospital, and the doctors are talking to me, and they're, you know, telling me all the things. Don't do this. Make sure you do this. Make sure you don't do that. And they're like, you know, make sure. They're like, you know, you had a traumatic brain injury, Miss Owen. Make sure you don't drink any alcohol or do any drugs. I'm like, don't worry, I won't. You know. And as soon as I get home, all my friends are like, hey, you made it. You know, and like, I'm 21 years old. Of course they're going to throw me a massive party with lots of alcohol and lots of drugs. You know, of course they are. So, what do? You know, exactly the opposite of what the doctor tells me to do. And that just continues. It just goes on, and it just goes on, and it just goes on. You know, and I tried to resume my life. You know, normally I tried going back to college and continuing my life, and what happened was that my alcoholism got more and more and more out of control. And when I was in college, if I did show up to class, I was so under the influence, I couldn't retain any of the information. I didn't hear anything that they were saying. And the only thing I was thinking about was the next drink. like, God, I can't wait to get out of here so I can go get drunk. You know, I wish this lady would shut up. You know, gosh, she's so annoying. Or, I'm like so hungover, or like I'm in some kind of withdrawal from not having anything in my system that, I can't even focus. I can't even pay attention. And I changed community college so many times. I think I went to 3 or 4 different community colleges, and they were all for associate in arts, because I could never figure out what I wanted to really do, what I wanted to transfer into a university for, because my alcoholism was everybody and everything else's fault. You know what I mean? Like, the teachers are really horrible here, and that's why I have bad grades, and so I'm going to drink over it, or the school here sucks, and so that's why I'm going to go get drunk, or whatever. My alcoholism was everybody else's fault. I dropped public speaking, I think it was 3 times, because I was absolutely so terrified that I wouldn't even get up in front of the class. I think I had to give a presentation on how to make blueberry muffins. And I was so terrified I wouldn't even show up to class, and I dropped it. It's like how extremely self-centered and fearful of a person I was. I mean, it was really bad. So I ended up going to college for 5 years for a 2-year degree. And I still don't have the degree. I mean, I can't, I could never commit. I could never finish anything. I was a really great starter and a really horrible finisher. I just never, I never could do it. So all along the way, let me see where I'm at. There's lots and lots of boyfriends, right? Lots of toxic relationships. I need somebody to drag along with me, or somebody to fix me. Misery loves company. Or I need somebody who can straighten me out. And most of the time it was some kind of toxic and abusive relationship. One of those relationships landed me in Wilmington, North Carolina, where my alcoholism got worse than it ever before, and his did too. And I watched that guy die on the floor right in front of me in our apartment as a direct result of his alcoholism. And that was extremely traumatic, but I'm a good old codependent alcoholic, right? And so here comes his best friend, and he's like, Maya, are you okay? What are you going to do? I don't know. Don't worry, Maya, I'll take care of you. Okay. That sounds good to me. And so, I latch on to his best friend, which really, I don't want to. I don't like this guy at all, right? Like, at all. Like, not one bit. But I need a place to stay now, and I need somebody to drink with. I need somebody who lives the life that I live, plus not pay any bills, right? And so I moved in with him and his parents, right? Because that's what we do. It seemed like a great plan at the time. And eventually, somehow, I think I was on unemployment. And I don't even know how I got on unemployment, because I couldn't even hold down a job. So I don't even know how that happened. We got our own little single wide trailer out in this little town called Dudley, North Carolina. And if you've ever been out there, that place is horrible. And I was miserable. I was isolated off by this time. I've destroyed so many relationships. I didn't have friends anymore. Most of my family members didn't want to have anything to do with me. That I'm the family member that if you let me in your house, I'm going to go through your medicine cabinets. I'm going to go through your purse. I'm going to steal all the silver out of your change jar if it's laying around. I'm not trustworthy. I'm going to show up and I'm going to be very under the influence and I'm going to embarrass you and I'm going to say really stupid things, and let's hope that you don't have any friends over. You know what I mean? And so I didn't have anybody. I had pushed myself to this point where I had isolated myself off from everybody. And so it's just me and this guy that I didn't want to be with in the first place. And we're living out in the middle of nowhere, like literally in I think it was a cornfield, in a single wide trailer. And for the first time, I was suicidal. And every single day, I would just lay there in the bed and I would think of ways that I could kill myself. And I don't know what happened. I believe it was God, and I just finally, I finally just had enough, and I feel like God gave me the strength one day to tell this guy, like I gotta go, like I'm leaving, I gotta get out of here, and but not before I got pregnant with my first kid, right? And so I called my sister, who was sober, at the time, and she helped me to get into my first treatment facility. And I didn't stay there very long. I stayed there for, I don't know, what was it, a month or two, something like that. I don't remember. I've listened to a lot of women speak about their alcoholism and their pregnancies and how they were able to stop drinking when they found out they were pregnant, and that is not my story. I could not stay sober with my first pregnancy, and my child was born very sick when she was first born, and I had her at UNC Chapel Hill, and she stayed in the NICU for the first 3 weeks of her life, and I stayed over at the Ronald McDonald House right down the street, and every day I would pump breast milk, and I would take it over to her because she had oxygen tubes in her, she had feeding tubes in her, she had all these monitors hooked up to her, and she was in an incubator because she was just too weak to even nurse. So every day I would pump and I would take breast milk over there to her, and give it to her. And for the first time, I saw that I was affecting somebody other than me. For a very, very, very long time, I was like, I'm not hurting anybody but myself. And then I look at this baby laying there with all these cords, and these tubes coming out of her. It's like so many, I can't even hold her without getting tangled up in them. And I was like, something's got to change. Something's got to change. And I promised myself that day, like, I was going to do better. I was going to be better. I was going to be a good mom for that little girl. And I meant it. 100% meant it. And so at a year old, I have her first birthday party, and I have a little party for myself, and I get pregnant with my second child. And I would like to tell you that I stayed sober during that pregnancy, and I didn't. Like I didn't, and like no matter how many times I laid there and I cried and I prayed and I begged God to help me, and no matter how much shame I felt, and no matter how much guilt I felt, and no matter how much of a piece of crap I felt like, I couldn't stay sober. I was absolutely 100% powerless. And there was nothing I could do about it. At this point, after that first kid, I was like, you can do it, right? You can change, you can get help, you can do something about it. And then there's the second kid, right? I was like, I'm never going through what I did with that first kid ever again, right? I'm never hurting another baby like that again, ever. And, and then there's this one night, where I'm drunk, right? And I can't feel my baby kick anymore. I can't feel my baby move anymore. And I'm pretty sure that, I've killed my kid. And I'm just laying there and I'm crying, right? And I'm praying, I'm begging God, God, please, if you will just save this baby. Take me or whatever, but please, God, just save my kid. I swear I will never, ever, ever do this again, ever. And I meant it with every fiber in my being. Right? And then I started feeling the baby move again. And I knew everything was okay. And no matter what, I could not hold true to that promise that I made to God, and I could not stay sober. No matter how much I meant it. And somehow, by the absolute grace of God, that baby came out totally healthy. I don't know how. It definitely wasn't me. Right? It was just God. So, it's 2015, right? And so I'm still doing the same old stuff, But you'd think I'd learned a lesson or two, right? But I'm a good old hard-headed alcoholic, right? We don't learn lessons easily. And so I'm driving around, and my son, he's in the back seat. He's 2 years old. And I'm heavily under the influence. And I pass out behind the wheel. I slam into the back of a car, and I get my first DUI, right? And I go to jail. And I get out, and 30 days later, I do the exact same thing again. Same kid in the car, right? Just that one though. Just my son each time. And I don't know why it's like that, but it is. And so, second time, me and my son, we go to the hospital to get checked out. I want to make sure he's okay, and some people come up to the hospital floor that I'm on. They say, Miss Owen, can you come downstairs? We want to talk to you. So I go downstairs with them, and they say, Miss Owen, we're from Child Protective Services, and you're a danger to your children. We're here to take them away from you. And I knew it was coming. You know what I mean? You can't live that way for very long and continue to get away with it. And so they took my kids away, and they threw me in the back of a cop car, and they sent me to jail again, which I knew that was coming too. And I get out of jail, right, and I go back to my apartment where me and the kids have been living, and I look around me, and there's their little beds and their empty crib and their little Dora DVDs on the floor and all their little toys and stuff, and nobody was playing with them, and their beds are empty, and everything's so quiet, and the silence was just deafening, and I was I knew I needed help, and I knew I really needed to do something this time. So I went to a local treatment facility where they really hammered AA, and you had to get a sponsor, and you had to work the 12 steps, because, like I said, left to my own devices, I don't make good decisions. But if somebody's this is what you have to do, I'm going to be all right, I'll do it. And so I got a sponsor, right? And this woman took me to the 12 steps. And no, I didn't grow up in a religious home. a relationship with God wasn't ever encouraged to me. It wasn't discouraged, but it wasn't ever encouraged either. I kind of had a bad taste in my mouth from my grandparents' church that we used to go to on some weekends, and it was a Southern Baptist church and fire and brimstone type thing, but when my sponsor introduced me to the second step, and she said, "May you can have your very own conception of God." That had nobody had ever introduced it to me like that before. It was always like, "May you either believe in this, or you don't believe in anything at all. You either take this or you take that." There was never any kind of gray area or in between, And that was extremely freeing to me. And I was like, this is awesome. Like I could Lego piece my own conception of God together. And that's when I really became willing. I became willing to get on my knees. I became willing to pray. I became willing to seek, and slowly, very slowly, I became willing to trust that maybe there was something up there, out there, somewhere, bigger than me, right? That not only looked over me, but also looked over my kids. A lot of things had happened, right? I was supposed to be dead, technically, according to these doctors. I had at least one kid that probably shouldn't even be here, and all of us were here. And, so my sponsor takes me through the steps, and my life starts to change, right? And so I make amends where I'm supposed to make amends, and I restore my relationships with my family members, and life changes, and it's different, but it's like a good different. You know what I mean? Like, it's scary at first to think like, well, what is my life going to be like if it's going to be different? Because I don't like change. Change is scary. You know what I mean? But it's like the change that has came about in my life has been beyond anything that I thought my life would be. And you hear people, that's like the cliche AA saying, right? AA has given me a life I would have never imagined, right? Is what you hear people say. But it's legit. Like, I never thought my life would be what it is today. And not because, like, I have lots of money or a super fancy car, but because, like, the peace that's in my heart, the relationships that I have, the healthy relationships that I have with my family members, my friends, my significant other, So I get done with this treatment facility, right? I stay there 16 months because that's how long I need to sit still and work on myself, right? It's quite a while. And I get my kids back, and I'm a full-time single mom, never parented sober before. I have no clue what I'm doing, right? And I don't have a license, right? My license has been taken away for 4 years because of the DUIs. So I'm a single mom, newly sober. I have no license. And my sponsor's like, "May, you still need to be going to 4 to 5 meetings every single week, and you need to be sponsoring women." And I'm like, "How am I going to do that with no car?" And she was like, "Well, you got the bus system there in Raleigh. You got other women in AA that'll help you. You can walk. There's Uber and there's, all those things." So for 4 years, I went back up to that local treatment facility and I sponsored women 2 to 3 times a week. And I either used Uber or Lyft or, got friends to take me up there, or I'd ride the bus as far as it would take me because it would only take me about halfway up there. And my kids were little when I got them back they were 3 and 5. So, I'm throwing car seats and Ubers, and throwing kids in there, and I'm lugging them around with me to meetings, and they love that treatment facility. They ran that place. I mean, it was insane. They'd get out, we'd pull up, and they'd get out, and they just run, they just take off, and they run into the building, and they're just, I'm like, all right, guys, just leave me, whatever, and I'm getting the car seats, and I'm lugging them in, and it was tough, man. It was tough for a long time. It was really hard. And I didn't do any of that stuff because I'm some great person. I didn't do any of that stuff because I'm some fantastic AA member. Like every single week I had to call 2 women to come over 4 times a night. 1 woman to come over to watch my kids, and another woman to come over to take me to a meeting. And I did that about 4 times a week for 4 years. And like I said, not because I'm some fantastic person, but because I wanted to stay sober. And I didn't know any other way to do it, and that's what my sponsor told me to do. So I just did it. I stopped questioning that woman very shortly after we met. I called her one time, and I told her how mad she'd made me after something that she did, and she said, good. And I just stopped fighting her after that. I felt like she liked it when I got angry, so. 2020, I did my time, right? I finally got my license back with a blow and go. I had to have a blow and go for 3 years, so I did that. That's fine. Like, I'll blow and go all day, honey. That is fine with me, I still continue to sponsor women. I still go to the treatment facility. I don't have to lug the kids around with me anymore, thank God. They're old enough now. They're 10 and 12 now, so they can stay at home. This past Christmas was probably one of the most powerful Christmases that I've had since I've been sober. And I guess you probably think like, well, was it your first Christmas? Like when you were sober, like for the first time with your kids, wasn't that the most powerful ones after you and your kids were reunited for the first time? And like, you would think so, but it wasn't for whatever reason. And like, I was just filled with like tears of gratitude this year, and my whole family, several of us struggle with alcoholism and addiction, and all of us were sober this year. All of us were together. All the kids are healthy and good, and everybody's getting along, and it was just so powerful, and I met this great guy a couple years ago, and I'm in a healthy relationship, right? And like 7-8 years ago, I had no clue what a healthy relationship looks like. I couldn't have ballparked it. You know what I mean? And it's just beautiful. He has 2 children of his own, and last month we got engaged, and I'm turning 40 this month, and this will be the first time I've ever gotten married in my life, and I'm what you call a 2-time baby mama, and as my life has just blossomed into something beautiful, and it's not because of me. It's not because of any of my own ideas. It's because of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's because of what I do in AA. It's because of what my sponsor tells me to do in AA. And my relationship with God, and none of it has anything to do with me. None of these ideas are mine. Let me just put it that way. Like, it's all Alcoholics Anonymous and the life that it's given me, and I'm so extremely grateful. Daniel, thank you so much for asking me to speak tonight, and I appreciate y'all having me. Thank you.